Well, hi everybody. Joe Van Duren here, and it's good to see everyone. I'm on Facebook Live Tuesday at 2. I help parents bring out the best in their kids so that they can watch them to grow up to be safe, healthy, successful, and happy. So today I'd like to ask you this question. How many of you right now are struggling with a child or with children in the family that are not showing you respect the way you would like them to, or maybe sometimes not showing respect on outside the house the way you would like them to do so? Is it arguing or talking back, or is it the attitude that they have, or what is it? Is it them being rude in some way? You know, if that's you, you're going to love our training today. So first, let's begin by acknowledging that while we believe that children and all of us have all of the virtues inside of them already, there are two critical things that we always want to remember. And the first is that even though they have them inside of them, doesn't mean that they're developed well. And so they still need to learn and to be educated by us about what each of the virtues looks like in our family, what it looks like in the community that we live. And that's part of our job as a parent. So, and then the second thing is that not all of the virtues are naturally strong for every child. So one child might be very strong in respect, and it might come a little bit more natural, and another child might have determination as one of his strongest virtues. And therefore, respect might be something that might need help with developing. So at the end of this training, I'm going to invite you to sign up for a free copy of a list of 100 virtues and the 5 strategies of the Virtues Project so that you can learn even more about bringing out the best in your children. But in the meantime, I'll give you details about that later. But in the meantime, let's get started with today's thoughts about getting more respect in the house. So I have 5 steps on this, 5 things to think about in doing this. And so the very first one is to remember that we are the parent. And I say that with love because, I know that sometimes we want to be our kids' best friend. We want to be their pal. We want to be loved by them. But in the end, us trying to be friends with them doesn't really work out. We need to be the parent. We need to take on the role of authority and use our authority in a loving way, in a healthy way. But trying to be a pal or a friend really isn't going to work well for our kids. In a healthy family, there's always someone is always in charge. And when they're not, children don't feel safe. And they're going to try to take control. If they feel a vacuum for power, a vacuum for who's in control or who's setting the boundaries, they are going to step in and try to take that control from the parents and just try to make it happen for themselves. So it's really important for us to take on our responsibility of being the authority in the house and taking it very seriously. Now, this number 2. This is the hard one. Be on the same page as your mate. Now, in many families, there's 2 adults in the family who are involved in the raising and of the child. But even if you're in a single parent family, it really doesn't matter. If we have a parent who is weak, let's say not weak, let's just say permissive, who is on that side of the continuum, where they are very loving and kind and forgiving, and they're always giving in to their child, permissive, let's say, the result is chaos because the child doesn't feel protected. Let me give you an example of that's outside of parenting. If I'm a teacher in a classroom, when I walk into that classroom, those students in the class, within 10, 15 minutes, they know immediately whether the teacher has good classroom management skills or if they're going to be able to control the classroom. And if they think that they can control the classroom, they're going to do things to get the teacher off subject. They're going to get the teacher to do a lot of different things, right? And there's going to be a real loss for the teacher and a loss in learning. Same thing is true in the workplace. If you have a boss who, wants to be Mr. Nice Guy, that wants to be loved, wants to be liked. It's very hard for us as a subordinate under them to really know what is expected of us, what they want us to do, even how we might be evaluated later on, because they're going to tiptoe around and be very careful so that they don't make us mad. Well, the same thing happens in a family too. So if we're too permissive, we're going to find that our children are not going to know what's really expected of them. On the other end of that, though, is the parent that's too rigid, and that results in a totally different set of problems. But a rigid parent is like a dictator, an authoritarian. They have rules. They're not flexible. They just have all these things, and it might look really orderly from the outside because other families are looking at us and going, "Oh, wow, look at that! They're able to do this, 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 and this," and the kids just follow the line. But in reality, inside both the family and inside our kid that's living in a house like that, there's a lot of fear and anxiety. They're afraid of breaking the rules, afraid of stepping out of line. And that's a very difficult situation for the parent. Worst case scenario is if you have one parent who is very permissive and one parent who is very rigid. Now the kids are really out of control because they don't know what's going on. They begin manipulating the parents. They try to take control, and respect is completely out of the question, because they're not going to respect the permissive parent. They may like them for what they can get out of them, but they're also not going to respect the rigid parent because they're just too hard. And so that's why we call for just right parenting. I guess maybe if I even went one step further, is that for many of us parents, we were in that situation where, I speak for myself here, where I wanted my kids to like me too. I know I did, but I would also get very frustrated when they weren't doing what I had hoped that they would do. And it would be very easy for me to slide up to that rigid parent and say, well, these are the rules and this is what we're doing. Boom, boom, boom. And then slide back down because I didn't like that style of parenting either. And so that sliding thing makes things very confusing for kids also. But just right parenting is recognizing our roles as an educator for our kids, recognizing that we're mentors and coaches, and we are the authority, but we're also the guide and the counselor, and we're there to help our children grow up to be safe, healthy, successful, and happy. So being on the same page, getting to that middle road, that middle way, that just right parenting style is what is very, very important for bringing about respect in the home. Number 3 is you need to describe what it looks like in the family. So respect in your family is probably going to look different than it does in my family. But our kids need to know what is expected. And so a couple of things. Sit down, write down how will you know when the child is showing you respect? How will the child know when you're showing them respect? Get these things written down, get an idea, and then talk about it as a family so that everyone knows what the expectations are. Number 4 is be realistic about your expectations and who your child is. We have to know who our child is and what they're strong in and what they need to develop. And they need to have very clear expectations for the situations that they're going into. So we're going to establish those expectations in the calm time, and then we're also going to establish the consequences for behavior outside of those boundaries when it's calm, so that when it happens, we can have a very clear, calm, respectful conversation about what has happened. And number 5 is don't take it personally. Our kids are going to say and do things that are going to, sometimes they're going to hurt a lot. And if we overreact, what's going to happen is that we will become that too hard parent, that rigid, authoritarian parent. If we underreact, we're going to just ignore the behavior. We're going to pass it off as being a phase. Neither one of them is correct. We need to educate our children and mentor them and coach them so that they can correct and make amends for the mistakes that they make. You know, kids want to have limits. It's how they know that they're cared about. It's how they know that they're loved. It's how that they know that we want them to be successful and happy. And that's why it's so important for us to have these boundaries and these limits. And that's what creates respect in a house. They may not thank you right away. They may not thank you now. But remember, it's not about getting them to like us. It's about doing the right thing so that they grow up to be safe, healthy, successful, and happy. Well, that's it. If you enjoyed this video, then I invite you to click on the link that I'm going to leave here for you so that you can get your free copy of the Virtues and the 5 Strategies of the Virtues Project. This download of all these virtues, these are all virtues that are important to every culture in the world, and the strategies describe how you can use them with your family. I'm also the host of a Facebook group, Just Right Parenting, and this is a group of parents who are committed to bringing out the best in their kids. I'm going to leave that link in the comments below also, where you can join instantly. Thanks for watching. Next week again, Tuesday at 2, Facebook Live, to bring another parenting tip. Thanks, everyone.